Have you ever had the feeling that you're standing in the exact center of your life and still missing something? Like the clock is ticking, the world keeps moving, but you somehow are frozen between who you pretend to be and who you were meant to become. Every morning, billions wake up to the same routine, chasing what they call success. But what if the real path was never meant to be loud, never meant to be visible? What if the most powerful shifts are silent, and most people never hear them? There's a reason some rise while others collapse under the same sky. And it's not luck, intelligence, or timing. It's something deeper, something hidden, something that whispers only to those who are still enough to listen. But you weren't taught to listen. You were taught to obey, to check boxes, to survive. And yet, inside you, there's a crack, a fracture where the truth keeps leaking in drop by drop. You feel it when you're alone with your thoughts, when your eyes linger too long in the mirror, when everything you've done still doesn't feel like enough. There's a reason why success seems effortless for a few, almost like they found a rhythm you've never been allowed to hear. And maybe it's not because they're better, but because they dare to unlearn what everyone else blindly accepts. You've been given instructions your whole life. But what if 5 forgotten truths could rewrite the entire script? What Napoleon Hill discovered wasn't strategy, it was sorcery. A pattern hidden beneath the surface of what we call life. A set of acts so simple, so deeply human, that they open invisible doors. Doors to wealth, yes, but also to clarity, to self-respect, to a knowing that burns louder than fear. Most people will never find those doors, not because they don't want to, but because they're too distracted by the noise. Because these acts demand presence. They demand risk. They demand the death of who you thought you were, so that who you truly are can finally take the throne. And the strangest part? You've already felt all 5, but you buried them. So the question is, why are you still here? What if you're not watching this by accident, but because some deeper part of you is ready to remember? There's a rhythm pulsing beneath this video, a frequency only certain souls will catch. And if you feel that pull in your chest right now, that tightening in your gut, that whisper in your mind that says, don't look away, then it's already begun. Not the video, the transformation, the unraveling of everything you thought you knew. What's coming next isn't content. It's a mirror, and some mirrors don't reflect. They reveal. There is a sacred violence in becoming, the kind that doesn't scream, but rips quietly from the inside out. It happens the moment you begin to question the life you've built. The moment the silence becomes louder than the noise. That's when the old self begins to decay, not with fire, but with awareness. And in that moment, you face a terrifying truth, that the version of you who followed every rule was never truly alive. The system trained you to chase shadows, titles, applause, validation. But real power doesn't echo. It hums, quietly, relentlessly, inside those who've discovered the 5 hidden actions that no one teaches, because if they did, the illusion would collapse. Success, the way Napoleon Hill defined it, isn't an outcome. It's a vibration, a spiritual voltage generated by repetition of the right internal acts. But these acts demand more than discipline. They require betrayal, not of others, but of the parts of you addicted to comfort. You'll feel it as resistance, as sabotage, as procrastination disguised as logic. That's not failure. It's ego death. And that death is sacred. These 5 acts are like spiritual scalpel work. Each one cuts away a lie you were taught to believe was love, was safety, was success. But underneath each cut is a truth so potent it feels dangerous. And it is. Because once you see it, you can't return. Most people live in a hypnotic trance, scrolling, numbing, surviving, while their soul suffocates beneath the weight of conformity. They don't see the prison because the walls are invisible, made of belief, tradition, fear. But there are few who wake up, who feel the cage not as protection, but as pressure, and instead of adapting, they break. Not down, through. This video is not about 5 habits. It's a key to that breaking. But only if you're willing to bleed. Not physically, but energetically. Only if you're ready to watch your illusions burn while a deeper, more feral version of you rises from the ash. Eyes open, hands steady, and purpose undeniable. You probably felt it, a quiet sense that something is missing, even when everything seems fine. The job, the routine, the goals on paper, yet there's a pulse beneath the surface whispering, "This isn't it." That whisper is ancient. It's the voice that spoke to visionaries, revolutionaries, those who couldn't stand still while the world offered comfort in exchange for their fire. But here's the trap. Comfort is seductive. It makes you forget that excellence demands exile from the crowd, from the predictable, from the illusion of safety. The 5 acts Napoleon Hill buried between the lines of his work aren't rituals for the successful. They are resurrection codes. To perform them is to let part of you die daily, so something greater can be born. Every day, the successful do something most people avoid at all costs. They confront their own shadow. They don't chase goals. They hunt down the lies they tell themselves. And that's why they win. Not because they're smarter, but because they're willing to be undone and rebuilt over and over again. These 5 actions aren't about time management or waking up early. That's surface noise. These acts happen beneath the skin, in the rituals no one sees. They're not about optimizing productivity. They are about invoking destiny. The kind of destiny that only answers to those who dare to enter the storm without guarantees. And yes, there is a price. But what they gain in return bends reality. And this is where most turn away. Because these 5 things, these hidden movements of the soul, they demand more than effort. They require sacrifice. You don't just do them. You become them. And when that happens, the world starts to shift in unnatural ways. Doors open that logic says should stay shut. People appear, events align, and life starts to mirror your internal state with eerie precision. But you won't get this from books alone, not even from Hill's words, unless you're listening from the right frequency. That's what this journey is, a decoding of the unspoken, a confrontation with the invisible. And once you hear what was always hidden in plain sight, you'll realize the life you've longed for isn't ahead of you. It's locked inside you, waiting for these 5 ancient keys. There's a war no one talks about, not the one between rich and poor, or success and failure, but the war between 2 voices inside you. One whispers dreams soaked in fire and vision. The other murmurs fear dressed as logic. And every morning, before the world even sees your face, these voices fight for control of your day. The successful, they don't silence the fear. They stare it down. They turn the volume up until it becomes unbearable, and then they walk through it. Because what waits on the other side isn't a reward, it's remembrance of who they truly are, of what they were sent here to move, change, ignite. And the 5 daily acts they perform, they're not tools, they're weapons. Rituals of spiritual warfare disguised as discipline. But here's what they won't tell you. These rituals aren't glamorous. They look like silence, like solitude, like questioning your worth in the middle of the night while the rest of the world sleeps. They look like saying no when everything in your body wants to say yes. Like choosing the harder path, not because it feels noble, but because ease has become a prison with golden walls. Every day, the successful step into this sacred discomfort, not for applause, not for validation, but because they know the version of themselves they're called to become can only be born through friction, through fire, through the unraveling of who they were yesterday. And somewhere in you, you already know this. You felt it, that ache, that pull, that unexplainable sense that your life is waiting for you to choose a different rhythm. Not louder, not faster, but truer. In Hill's 5 daily codes, they aren't about adding more to your to-do list. They're about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. They're not steps, they're thresholds. And each one you cross burns a lie to the ground and births a new truth in its place. But here's the paradox. The deeper you go, the less you can go back. Once you see what these 5 acts reveal, nothing, absolutely nothing, will ever feel the same again. So why don't they teach this? Why isn't it on the news, in schools, whispered from parents to children like sacred legacy? Because truth, real truth, doesn't scream. It waits, hidden, beneath layers of distraction, beneath the rituals of mediocrity we perform every single day without question. And yet, beneath the noise, there's a pulse, a silent frequency calling you back to the unshakable knowing that you were never meant for a life of quiet resignation, that something ancient lives inside you, wild, undomesticated, and it remembers that greatness isn't achieved. It's remembered. And the 5 things you're about to discover, they are the keys to that memory. Not facts, not motivation, but access codes to the real you. You will not be entertained here. You will be confronted. Because what Hill discovered wasn't just a path to wealth, it was a map back to power. The kind of power that scares people. The kind that can't be bought, imitated, or outsourced. The kind that makes you unpredictable, magnetic, untouchable. These 5 daily rituals aren't about what you gain. They're about what you become. And becoming, real becoming, is violent. It breaks you. It strips you. Until only the essential remains. And that's where your legacy begins. Not in what you do, but in what you're willing to leave behind a rise. So now, the question isn't whether you'll learn these 5 things. The question is whether you're ready for what they'll awaken. Because once the veil lifts, once you see the mechanics of how powerful people actually move through the world, you won't be able to unsee it. Every excuse will taste like poison. Every shortcut will look like a trap. And the comfort you once worshipped will start to feel like a slow death. That's the point. That's the portal. On the other side of this video, everything begins to shift. But only if you stay. Only if you watch with the part of you that's been waiting silently for a moment exactly like this. What if everything you've been chasing, success, clarity, freedom, was never out there? What if it was encoded inside you, buried beneath years of noise, expectations, and invisible programming? Napoleon Hill didn't stumble upon a formula. He decoded a pattern, a sequence of inner activations disguised as daily actions. They weren't just habits. They were awakenings in motion. These 5 rituals are not strategies. They are initiations. And every single person who ever built an empire, broke the cycle, or rewrote their destiny, they knew. Some consciously, some intuitively, but all of them touched this frequency. And now you will too. The first shift is subtle. You won't even notice it at first. It begins with a question, an uneasiness that spreads through your routines like a crack in glass. Why do I do what I do? Who told me this was the way? And the moment that crack appears, the illusion begins to collapse. That's where the first ritual reveals itself. Not as something to do, but as something to remember. A return. A sacred rebellion against the machinery of unconscious living. He'll call it the root, the origin point of all success. But you won't understand what it really means, not yet. Because the power of it isn't in the explanation, it's in the experience. And that experience starts now. You're not here for tips. You're here because something inside you is waking up. You felt it, those late nights when silence grows louder than thought, when the ceiling above you feels like it's pressing down with questions you can't answer. That pressure isn't confusion, it's potential. The first ritual lives in that silence. It asks nothing. It demands everything. It cannot be taught. It must be activated. And by the end of this video, you will know it. Not because I told you, but because something in you will shift. And once it does, the other 4 will begin to unfold like clockwork. Because once the seed cracks, the roots don't stop growing. They never told you that the world is built to keep you asleep. That success, real, irreversible success, is less about what you do and more about what you undo. The 5 rituals Napoleon Hill hinted at were never designed for comfort. They were built to shake your foundation. One by one, they dismantle the false scaffolding around your life. The labels, the roles, the masks. They don't polish the surface. They burn through it. And you may not like what gets exposed in the flames, but you will recognize it. A forgotten version of yourself, staring back through the smoke, whispering, "We were never meant to live like this." And in that whisper lies the second ritual. Not an action, but an unraveling. a daily confrontation with the parts of you that hide behind busy schedules and filtered dreams. This ritual doesn't begin with motivation. It begins with truth, and truth rarely arrives gently. It will question your morning. It will interrupt your sleep. It will force you to look at the gap between who you are and who you pretend to be. Most people run from it. The few who don't, they're the ones who rise. Not because they're braver, but because they're done lying to themselves. And that moment is where everything shifts. You won't be given a map. You'll be handed a mirror. That's the trap most never see. They want the destination without dismantling the detour. But Hill didn't write for the masses. He wrote for those who were willing to be undone and rebuilt. The second ritual asks for your silence, your honesty, your discomfort. It will not reward you immediately. It will not flatter your ego, but it will build something unbreakable beneath your skin, a kind of inner architecture no failure can reach. And once that foundation sets in, you'll stop craving shortcuts, because you'll finally know what real direction feels like. There's a sound inside your soul that you've been trying to silence, an echo of what you could be if you stopped betraying yourself every morning. The third ritual doesn't shout. It waits, quietly, in the space between your first breath of the day and the moment your mind drowns in noise. It's a choice made before thought, before logic, before the world gets to you. But here's the twist. It doesn't feel powerful. It feels inconvenient, unnecessary, too small to matter. And that's exactly why it works. Because the third ritual rewires the part of you that thinks pain is punishment and struggle is failure. It teaches you to lean in, to open the door when resistance knocks, and that changes everything. This ritual isn't glamorous. It won't go viral. It can't be captured in a highlight reel. But it's the one thing that every successful mind has in common, because it breaks the illusion that you need to feel ready to move. You don't. You never will. The third ritual replaces readiness with rhythm. It installs a code in your nervous system, one that says, we go, no matter what. And at first, you'll hate it. You'll negotiate. But then, something subtle shifts. One morning, you'll realize the dread is gone. The hesitation has no voice. And what's left is motion. Pure, sacred, unstoppable motion. The kind that turns invisible progress into irreversible change. And here's what they never told you. The smallest discipline, done in darkness, awakens the brightest parts of your life. The third ritual is your proof. It's the unseen repetition that forges visible results. But more than that, it's the death of the version of you that waits for permission. Because once you've lived a single day without betraying your own word, without collapsing at the altar of comfort, you'll never go back. Something inside you will refuse. And every excuse that once had power will sound like a foreign language. This is where the real shift begins. Not in the world, but in the echo chamber of your own mind. There's a moment that comes like a whisper, barely audible, almost dismissible, when your soul asks, what are you avoiding? This fourth ritual doesn't look impressive on the outside. In fact, to most people it looks like nothing. But it is the undoing of self-sabotage in real time. It's the confrontation you've postponed, the call you didn't make. The habit you know is rotting your future, but still feels safer than the unknown. This ritual demands a different kind of bravery. Not the loud kind, but the quiet decision to stop hiding from the thing you fear will break you. Because here's the paradox. That thing? It's your doorway to freedom. There is a pattern hidden in the lives of the elite, the fulfilled, the unshakable. They don't run from their shadow. They walk straight into it, eyes wide open. The fourth ritual is the practice of unmasking, of removing the polite smile, the well-rehearsed excuse, the mask of I'm fine. It's the moment you stare into the mirror and don't look away. And what you'll find there isn't shame, it's clarity. Because your greatest power has always been buried beneath the thing you couldn't name. And every day you perform this ritual, you loosen the grip of the lie that comfort equals safety. You begin to crave truth more than relief. What if your biggest breakthrough is locked inside the thing you swore you'd never face? The fourth ritual is that key, but it only works if you turn it. If you stop rehearsing your defenses and allow yourself to feel the full weight of what you've denied. That ache in your chest. It's not weakness. It's an invitation. This is the ritual that breaks the loop, the one that turns survival into sovereignty. And once you taste that raw, unfiltered honesty, you won't be able to pretend again. The fog lifts. The game changes. And you start living a life that no longer requires explanation, only embodiment. There is a silence that only the fifth ritual can unlock, a silence not of emptiness, but of absolute presence. The kind of silence that bends reality around you, sharpens your intuition, and brings time to a standstill. It is here, in this breathless space, that successful people shape their futures before they even arrive. This ritual is not action, it's alignment. It's not about doing more, but about becoming more. And the tragedy is, most will never access it. They are too busy chasing noise, mistaking motion for meaning. But those who stop, those who listen, they tap into a frequency that whispers the future before it becomes visible. This final practice is not written in books, nor spoken in interviews. It is passed in glances, in energy, in the vibration of rooms that feel alive without saying a word. The fifth ritual is where you stop asking the world for permission, where you cease begging for signs and instead become the sign. It's the point where your inner world grows louder than the outer chaos, and in that resonance, reality bends to meet your vibration. People think manifestation is about wanting something badly, but they're wrong. It's about matching the signature of the thing you've already become in secret. This ritual trains you to hold that signal, even when doubt screams louder than hope. Ask yourself this: what if everything you've been striving for is already yours in another dimension, just waiting for you to attune to it? That is the essence of the fifth ritual. Not striving, not forcing, receiving. But only those brave enough to let go of who they think they should be will ever step into who they truly are. This is not the end, it's the crossing. The final act before the metamorphosis. And once you perform this ritual daily, you don't just live differently. You exist differently, like someone who no longer chases time, but commands it. Someone who doesn't pursue success, but embodies inevitability. The final silence is not a point, but a wave that silently expands within you, reverberating in the space between what has been and what is yet to come. It is at that moment that words dissolve and only the profound images remain, the subtle symbols that we carry hidden deep within. Imagine a river that never runs dry, a flame that does not burn but warms the forgotten parts of your being. It is the sensation of being simultaneously broken and whole, lost and found, exactly in the place where true transformation germinates without fanfare. It is not about understanding with the mind, but about feeling with every fiber, allowing the experience to carve new cavities in the soul. This final emotional pulse does not announce the end, but invites a subtle new beginning, an invisible dance between now and forever. The secret you sought is not out there. It already resides in the silence you carry, in the hidden resilience, in that space between fear and courage that only you can inhabit. Every metaphor that ran through your mind, every doubt that whispered in the shadows, is now a silent seed preparing to bloom. And even when the video stops, these images will continue to awaken, bringing to light questions that your heart did not even know it had. It is as if the echo of these words is a bridge between the old and the new, an invitation to look within and realize that the journey never ends. It only transforms. If you have felt this call, this deep resonance, know that the next step is before you, not as a command, but as an invitation from soul to soul. Share this vibration. Let others also awaken to this mystery that pulses silently within you. Like to anchor this energy, comment to expand the connection. Subscribe so that this journey of discovery never ceases. Not because it should, but because your heart recognizes that something greater is in motion. And so, together, we continue not in search of definitive answers, but in constant reverence for the mystery that makes us eternally alive.